Have you ever stopped to think about what keeps a country's entire economy running? I mean, it's not just about money or technology, right? It's really about people. Specifically, it's the incredibly complex, super powerful, and yeah, sometimes chaotic relationship between millions of workers and their employers. In India, this relationship is handled by this fascinating, intricate machine. So today, we're going to pop the hood and see exactly how this thing works. To really get a handle on this machine, we're going to build it from the ground up, piece by piece. First, we'll look at the blueprint, what industrial relations even is. Then we'll get into the main parts, the workers' side and the employer's side. After that, we'll install the operating system, the rules they all have to play by. And finally, we'll put it all together and see how the complete Indian system runs in the real world.
So, first things first. Before we can start talking about all the gears and levers, we've got to understand the basic design. What's the big idea behind this whole system?
Okay, so at its heart, industrial relations, or IR as you'll hear it called, is basically the framework that manages how three key groups talk to each other. I want you to think of it like a three-legged stool. On one leg, you've got the employers. On the second, you have the employees, usually represented by unions. And that third leg, that's the government. The whole point of this setup is to balance everyone's interests so that the wheels of industry keep turning smoothly, without everything grinding to a halt because of conflict.
For India, especially right after independence, this wasn't just some textbook theory. It was a national priority. On one hand, the country had to industrialize and grow, like yesterday. But on the other hand, there was this really deep commitment to social justice and protecting its workforce. So this whole IR system was designed with that tension baked right in, to chase rapid growth and ensure fairness at the same time.
All right, let's get our hands dirty and start putting this machine together. The first huge component, really the engine that provides all the power, is the workforce itself and how it makes its voice heard.
And how does that voice get heard? Well, mainly through trade unions. I mean, think about it. One single worker doesn't have a lot of power to bargain for a raise or demand better safety gear, but when workers team up, suddenly they have real leverage. Unions act as a watchdog to protect people from unfair practices, and they're also a megaphone, making sure the workers' concerns are heard, from the factory floor all the way up to the halls of government. They turn individual whispers into a collective roar. Okay, so every powerful engine needs a strong chassis to hold it all together. On the flip side of the workers, we have the employers and their own collective groups. So just like unions speak for workers, these employers' federations speak for management. They're the ones on the other side of the negotiating table. But they do a lot more than that. They lobby the government for policies that help businesses grow, and they're a support system for their members, giving them legal advice and helping them navigate the rules. At the end of the day, their job is to create a stable, predictable world where businesses can actually succeed. In this slide right here, this lays out the central tension perfectly. Look at the goals. They're not always on the same page, right? Workers want higher wages and job security. Management wants more profit and higher productivity. Now, neither side is wrong here. These are just their logical objectives. The entire purpose of industrial relations is to be the arena where these competing but legitimate goals can be negotiated and balanced inside one shared system. So, if you've got these two powerful forces, each pulling in a different direction, how do you stop the whole machine from just shaking itself to pieces? Well, you need an operating system. You need a clear set of rules that everyone has to follow. In India, that operating system is a huge collection of laws called labor legislation. This is the official rulebook. It lays out the boundaries for everything. What's a fair wage, how many hours you can work, what safety standards are required, and, maybe most importantly, how to solve disagreements when they pop up. This legal framework is that third leg of our stool. It's the government stepping in to set the rules of the game. Now, the system isn't just about handling fights. It also tries to build cooperation from the start through something called workers' participation. And this is more than just a suggestion box by the water cooler. It's a structured path. It starts by creating joint councils with people from both sides. Then management shares key info about how the company is doing. After that, they actually consult workers on big topics, and in some cases, it can even lead to everyone making decisions together. It's a way to build teamwork right into the machine's design. Okay, so we've got all the parts: the worker's engine, the employer's chassis, and the legal operating system. Now let's fire this thing up and see how it actually runs in the real world, especially with all the unique twists of the Indian context.
Academics and experts tend to look at this whole thing through a few different lenses. The unitary view is kind of the optimistic one.
It sees a company as one big, happy family, all working towards the same goal. The pluralistic view is a bit more realistic, and it's much closer to how India's system works. It sees the company as a collection of different groups with competing interests that have to be negotiated. And then there's the Marxist view, which sees the whole thing as a fundamental power struggle between classes. Knowing these different viewpoints helps us understand why things happen the way they do.
So, what makes the Indian IR machine so unique? Well, first off, the government is a very active player. It's not just a hands-off referee. That means rules can change pretty fast. Second, unions in India have historically been closely linked to political parties, which can give them a lot of power, but can also drag workplace issues into much bigger political fights. The system also really leans on third parties, like special labor courts, to settle fights. And through it all, you have this constant dance between conflict and cooperation, often happening at the same time.
So look, if there's just one thing you remember from all this, let it be this. India's industrial relations system is not some simple, predictable machine. It is a dynamic, complex, living ecosystem. It's built to manage the natural, and probably permanent, tension between the three key partners in any economy: workers, employers, and the state, all in an effort to keep the nation moving forward.
And that leads us to one final, really big thought. This machine we've been talking about, it was built for an industrial age. But today, with AI, automation, and the whole gig economy exploding, the very meaning of employer and employee is getting blurry. And that leaves us with a huge question to chew on. As work itself changes so dramatically, which part of this complex machine needs the most urgent redesign to keep the engine running for the 21st century?